What's up, guys? Disclosure Artist here, and today I'm going to talk to you about books and building a library and how it's important not how many books you read, but what books you read. And I'm just going to go over some of the books that I have. Um, Not saying that I've read them yet, but I'm saying that based on the referrals that I've gotten from conversations with people who know me, who I have allowed to pick my brain, and vice versa, are the referrals that I listen to more than anything, because they're not just, somebody sharing their opinion with me about something that they like or think is interesting, but rather, again, have a frame of reference with which to relay information to me. I'm not saying I have a lot of books, and I'm not even saying I've read a lot of books. The way that we learn or pick up information in this world is relative to, our individual makeup. So I'm just going to go over a few that I have acquired, why I think they're important, and I'm also going to include a few that I would like to acquire um, and get into once I have the time. So I'm just going to start with this one here. It's a pretty famous book. I'm pretty sure that the author, even whether jokingly or not, wrote the book, had the book illustrated, included the fact that part of it was written by an actual gnome. I think it's a fascinating piece of literature. I'm not alone in that. The detail in the book itself basically lends itself to the fact that these are real creatures. They exist in a different vibration, and I definitely implore anybody who's interested in the subject to look into it. Beautifully illustrated, full of detail, and more than likely more factual than fiction. In fact, when it was actually published, they published it under nonfiction, so this should raise a few questions. Anyway, I got into a conversation with a passenger. She worked in the industry, and we got to talking, and I feel like a good foundation for what actually happened here in the country that we're in, being the United States, could best be explained with this book here. She told me that, she read it in college, and if I haven't read it yet, that doing so will upset me greatly. She was not incorrect in that. In fact, 14 pages in, I began to understand why certain people shy away from the cabal, why they shy away from the trafficking, the QAnon stuff, everything that's going on that's just too difficult to look at. Reptilians eating babies, elites drinking blood, etc. All the gruesome, ugly stuff. Not saying it's in this book. I'm just saying I know how it feels to not want to hear about any of those things, because when I started reading this book, the absolute disgusting level of brutality occurring because of man's violence towards his fellow man, it forced me to put the book down. But at least I have it here as a frame of reference, a way to begin looking at maybe what has happened and transpired here on the land that we live, and share with past, present, spiritual energies. A good starting point. As far as starting points are concerned, you can't really begin to understand what's going on here, the world that we live in, or how we fit into it, until, I guess, you pick up this book. And this came across to me in watching one of the late Jordan Maxwell's lectures, in which he relayed to the interviewer that this book was referred to him by what he considers, or is convinced, was an extraterrestrial who appeared in human form. He had a relationship with this father and daughter who he met in Los Angeles, and basically long story short, he had a very, very emotional bond with these people. And, on one occasion, he mentioned how this gentleman was actually able to non-verbally communicate to UFOs and get them to actually appear for Jordan. And, there's a lot that I could say about this. How they basically were able to understand what his purpose was on this earth, and how they told him that if he wants to understand what is going on in this world, as far as how strange it is, then you can begin with this book right here. This is a perfect collection of all of the strange things that have happened on the earth that absolutely no one can explain. So there it is. And I'm just going to finish with this one here, because this one lends itself to the fact that the powers that be have been utilizing time travel for a very long time. The synchronicities between what goes on in the story that happened over 100 years ago and what is currently going on in our world with a very specific family are unparalleled. So my partner actually got this book for themselves, and I have it here in this collection because I think it might contain some interesting, if not fascinating, information. The book that I'm really excited to read is this one, because the example that he gives to Jordan to sell him on the fact that this book is going to be right up his alley is one of the early examples beginning in the book where, for example, he says, there was a town in France where for some reason one day giant boulders started falling out of the sky out of nowhere in slow motion. And it's happened on several occasions. And as they were falling to the ground, they were basically splaying out in a slow motion dust cloud exactly the way that they would have if it had happened full speed. Of course, they're coming out of nowhere, just seemingly thin air. And it's essentially what you would call a time warp. So these are some of the books that I'm interested in getting into. I'd also like to, at this time, mention that I'm definitely down for receiving the Law of One information, as well as the Billy Meier books. I think both are very pertinent to understanding what's going on here, and I plan to acquire them in due time. All right, that's all for now. Take care, guys.